Welcome back to New Persuasive Words. I'm Scott Jones.
And I am Bill Bohr.
Bill, how are you, my friend?
I am good. We haven't talked for a while. Well, you said you're too busy. That's right. That you're going.
I'm busy, which is not good. Which is not good.
Right. I had a
I'm
very
looking
busy.
to be inactive. Like they have the active communities for over 60. I want to move in there, but an inactive community.
Inactive community. Yeah.
I'd like to be in an inactive. If anybody knows an inactive community that I could join, I would be very, very amenable to that.
There we go. Hey, by the way, I hate to. This may be the first time ever, but can you turn yourself up a little bit? You're not as clear as you usually are.
I can. Is that better?
A little bit more.
All right, we can adjust. See, everybody, this is behind. How's that?
There we go. Well, you're tired. You know what? You've been doing too much. You don't have that.
I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm
Yeah.
tired. This voice is. I look as bad as Pete Hesgeth after a long night at Delilah's Den. You know what, Bill? I think when you can't handle a top secret chat protocol, I think the place for you is the UN. Put him in the UN. It'll be fantastic. We love the UN. It's fantastic.
That would be a significant demotion in Trump world, right?
And Marco Rubio, this is a fascinating thing, right? I find so interesting that Rubio is now acting National Security Advisor and Secretary of State. These are jobs that, like, generally the National Security Advisor is camped outside the Oval Office, right? They've got an office down the hall, and they're just there at the president's beck and call. They're not running an administration. They're not like even the director of national intelligence or DOD. They're not running a bureaucracy. They're there to just sort of go through all the, like to brief the president, to help on decision making. So you're going to do that. And by the way, Rubio says that he's just apparently he doesn't like all the traveling as Secretary of State. That's like saying, I like being a hockey goalie. I just hate the pucks flying. Like, what the hell do you think you're doing? I mean, like, what, I want to be a plumber. I'm just not into toilets.
I really enjoy playing hockey. It's just the ice thing.
Yeah,
it's hard. Can we do this? Can we do this?
What the hell do you think you were signing up for?
He's the incredible shrinking man right there. He certainly
literally. Yeah. Which, I mean, it's just so. I actually watched. This is what's wrong with me. I mean, there are many things, but I watched like a bit of the 2-hour cabinet meeting. I saw it. Yeah. I went on YouTube.
Oh my gosh.
So the first,
you need to play more shuffleboard. You need to be playing.
I know.
I know you've been joking. You need to look for unassisted living for you. I don't know what
something without YouTube. So the first 5 minutes is Hesgeth saying, of course, Mr. President, after you parted the Red Sea and led the Israelites out of Egypt, and after you invented the light bulb, and you took us out of the dark ages of Joe Biden, and basically there was no military recruitment, with the military, no one wanted to join everything. So I just thought, all right, I'm just going to Google this. I don't know anything about this. Military recruitment has been steadily up every year. It has gone up in the past 100 days, but it also
that's because they keep kicking people out.
Exactly. The guy that's getting the fat people out. But it was up under Biden. It was up the whole last year. It's just a trend. It's since COVID, it's been a growing trend. But I'm just like, this is just total fallacy, right? And it took me 3 seconds to but it's just so interesting. What else is just complete bullshit that you're just like, it's just, but who has time to fact check 2 hours of bullshit, let alone watch 2 hours of bullshit?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just you can just watch it in North Korea with the sound off. It's the same thing.
It's just so. This is fascinating, and we're but we've been liberated, which is nice. We're living. I mean, a couple weeks past liberation, which is. I feel fantastic. I saw a
Good.
Taylor the other day, kissing a nurse just on Broad Street, Philadelphia, just like just see me, Dave. It's amazing. But I'm walking down the street. There's confetti just flying on Market Street in Philadelphia.
That might be
Remarkable.
a canister on fire. And that might just be the ashes coming your direction. Yeah.
It could be that. It could be that.
It could be that.
Bill, I mean, there's so much in the world.
Well, I know, like the conclave has bumped me. I was going to be in the Vatican next week at the Sistine Chapel, and the conclave has canceled my ticket. So there we go.
Oh, you can't go?
No, because it's shut down. So you can't go into the Vatican. Well, I don't know if you can go to St. Peter's, but the Vatican museums and the Sistine Chapel are closed. So, and I was there years ago, but now I know stuff. I wanted to go as an informed looker, as opposed to.
They don't want you there, Boo. The only I hate to tell you this. Only your ticket was canceled.
I
know tons of people. I know people that are going to cocktail parties. It's Vatican. I actually 3 friends. Jason and Michelle.
Oh, good. I'm like the lonely cardinal who no one knew was a cardinal. Like that would be funny if I just showed up and say, "Hey,
I'm the cardinal." Like in
I'm the cardinal. I'm the cardinal from Iraq.
By the way, the Genevans are getting together this weekend.
Oh, nice. Very nice. I think very good. Well, speaking of
Geneva, speaking of Geneva, why did Calvin get paid 20 cases of wine or something was part of the annual stipend?
Yeah. But was it French wine or was it Swiss swill?
Swiss wine. Swiss wine.
I don't. I guess they make some of that ice wine or whatever there. I don't know. I don't know about Swiss wine. I doubt there is any, but I could be totally wrong.
I mean, I'm sure there's somewhere
somebody's did some,
and somebody aged a grape. Like some people make wine everywhere, right?
By the way,
they have these home kits.
Doesn't mean you should drink it. Doesn't mean it's any good. By the way, I just Dan Snow, the British historian guy. While we're talking, it just flashed up Germany after Hitler. It just seemed like I don't know.
Some of its best years. Look.
Well, yeah. So you wrote an article that we were going to talk about.
I did,
and it kind of ties in. I'm actually preaching on Matthew 16 this week. I want to talk about the keys of the kingdom, what they are. So we are both thinking in these terms.
Don't you think if Eugene Peterson was writing the message, that would be the code to the kingdom, the door code to the kingdom? There's no keys. Who has keys anymore? It's door codes. Right?
You've got the code now, Peter. Don't mess it. Don't forget
it. Don't forget it. Exactly. There's this great thing I posted on Instagram. What if Peter had an iPhone and it was just awesome? It was this?
I saw. Yeah, it's fun.
So great.
Selfie,
so great. It's so great.
I like. Did you see the ones where Pope Francis is with Jesus flying around? I think I sent you that.
It's amazing.
Pope Francis in heaven. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he's having a good time.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you remember the one Simpsons where they're like, where Marge is looking for Homer and Bart, and they're in Catholic heaven, and Marge's in Protestant heaven. They're playing like croquet. And where's Jesus? He's gone native. Like it's all Italians, like drinking wine, and Irishmen fighting, and it's great. Like Catholic heaven looks fantastic, and Protestant heaven is just wasps.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, I did write something. It was inspired. It was a revision of something I wrote on Substack, and
I liked both. I liked both of them.
Yeah, it was an evolution.
I was skeptical of the revision. I was skeptical of the guidance you were given from your editor on the revision, but I thought it was a fine piece. Both of them.
Don't you think? Look, I mean, do you think Moses had an editor? Paul.
Well, apparently Moses had at least 4.
4. Right. Come on, people have editors.
Right.
Yeah. So I wrote. It's interesting because I wrote a piece on Substack when I was thinking about Francis's health and Conclave. I thought Conclave was such a fantastic film.
We talked about the movie on. I think we talked little bit about this after you wrote that, and
Maybe
and I
possible.
saw the movie. Yeah,
Bill, where does it all go in the content? It's what we've talked about, what we haven't.
we should. Google me. Who said that?
Google
What
it. Yeah,
is
I
that
bet
from?
you we could. But we could ask ChatGPT. Like we could just comb the archive. We could ask ChatGPT what we've thought. I don't know. I'm sure we could do
No,
lots of
no. But
things.
anyway, but I think it's timely, and Brother Francis has gone on to his reward. So
Yeah, so I want to read this. So we talked, I think, before about which we can revisit in this conversation. So I talk about it in the piece, but the Cardinal Thomas Lawrence, who's the dean of the College of Cardinals, just gives this beautiful sermon about doubt
in the movie, yeah,
in the movie, and that brought me back to in 2005 when Benedict XVI was elected. In that conclave, when he was the dean, he preached a sermon. Actually, my teacher Jeff Stout wrote about that in a journal of essays about relativism. And Stout didn't love the sermon, but that's fine. But
atheists don't usually. They're not often big fans of papal sermons. No.
So, but although he's interesting still because he loved Walter Storff and Bart and stuff, but this is what Ratzinger, one of the passages quoting from it, he's referencing Ephesians 4. He says, "How many winds of doctrine have we known in recent decades? How many ideological currents? How many ways of thinking? The small boat of the thought of many Christians has often been tossed about by these waves, flung from one extreme to another, from Marxism to liberalism, even to libertinism, from collectivism to radical individualism, from atheism to a vague religious mysticism, from agnosticism to syncretism, and so forth. Every day, new sects spring up. And what St. Paul says about human deception and the trickery that strives to entice people into error comes true. Today, having a clear faith based on the creed of the church is often labeled as fundamentalism, whereas relativism, that is, letting oneself be tossed here and there, carried about by every wind of doctrine, seems the only attitude that can cope with modern times. We are building a dictatorship of relativism. That's a powerful phrase. We are building a dictatorship of relativism that does not recognize anything as definite and whose ultimate goal consists solely of one's own ego and desires. We, however, have a different goal, the Son of God, the true man. He is the measure of true humanism. That is, there's something that I resonate with in that quote. I wouldn't want that to be the only quote I ever carry around in my pocket. But there's something there that I deeply resonate with.
Yeah, we're constantly. I guess we are a very dialectical pair, but that certainly is one
dialectical pair. Everybody, he's here till Thursday.
But that's certainly a position that I agree with, and I think at least most of my career, I've been dealing with religious institutions who are the fruits of that kind of thinking of the relativism, and not one of them has been vital. They've all been in decline. So I think there really is something there, and I think that does resonate with me too. Like you said, I I like to balance it, right? I want to hold to. I want to put Halik beside that, Thomas Halik, or the sermon from the movie, which I think was beautiful as well. But I do think that's an important. Yeah, So
I'll just read that passage I like from the other sermon, which I think there's dialectically in relation to it, right? Where Cardinal Thomas Lawrence, played by Ralph Fiennes, right? Fiennes?
Fiennes.
Ralph
Fiennes. Yeah.
I didn't know that's how you said that. Fiennes.
Yep. Yeah, that's how you say it.
He, by the way, in the new movies coming out, it's the Odyssey, the Iliad. It's called The Return, I guess. He looks jacked. I saw pictures of him at 60. He's completely jacked.
Well,
good.
Liam Neeson.
I saw pictures. No, Fines. He's
Well, I know,
he's
but
dead.
Liam,
Oh yeah.
he's that old and he looks pretty good too. Yeah,
Well, and then Van Damme I saw today on Facebook is something about Van Damme at 64 looks pretty incredible.
yeah. And you
I
got,
read I read all
our favorite cabinet member too.
Pete Esco. He looks fantastic.
No, not him. I was talking about Bobby.
RFK Jr. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
RFK. I'm drinking Coke Zero. Suck it. Suck it, RFK Jr.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
This is Cardinal Thomas Lawrence, which I think is so. Here's another take from Ephesians. Let me speak from the heart for a moment. St. Paul said, "Be subject to one another out of reverence for Christ. To work together, to grow together, we must be tolerant. No one person or faction seeking to dominate another." And speaking to the Ephesians, who were, of course, a mixture of Jews and Gentiles, Paul reminds us that God's gift to the church is its variety. It is this variety, this diversity of people and views, which gives our church its strength. And over the course of many years, in the service of our mother, the church, let me tell you, there is one sin which I have come to fear above all others: certainty. Certainty is the great enemy of unity. Certainty is the deadly enemy of tolerance. Even Christ was not certain at the end. My God, why have you forsaken me? He cried out in agony at the 9th hour on the cross. Our faith is a living thing precisely because it walks hand in hand with doubt. If there was one certainty and no doubt, if there was only certainty and no doubt, there would be no mystery and therefore no need for faith. Let us pray that God will grant us a pope who doubts, and let him grant us a pope who sins and asks for forgiveness and who carries on. And those two words can be words spoken together, right? I mean, those
Right.
both from Ephesians.
Well, what's interesting to me is both of them. You and I like to talk about ideas and theological things and trends and social trends and things like that. But I think the corruption of doctrine is less of an issue than both of the extremes of those positions are speaking to. If you believe them, you don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell him to give me about 20 minutes? All right. Thanks. All right. Here we go.
See, we have lives apart from the podcast.
Yeah, we have lives apart from the podcast. This happens.
But I think more seriously than wrong thinking is both of those positions end up, you don't have to pray. Like if you are relativist and you basically don't think there is a God, or God doesn't really, is some theist or deistic God, deism or whatever, then you don't have to say your prayers. If you have certainty, if you already have it all figured out, there's no need for faith either. And I think that's the danger, right? And if the biblical narrative, if the stories of the people who've come before us, both in Hebrew scriptures and certainly the gospel narratives, if there's one thing they're trying to teach us, is the need to be dependent and the need to walk by faith and to say your prayers and to realize that God often allows his people into places that are not particularly comfortable or good. And so I do think that's the power of that, is just that, if you are, the sin of certainty means I don't need to think, I don't need to say my prayers, I don't need to listen to anybody else. Most certainly, I don't even need to listen to God. It's like the Grand Inquisitor. We've already got this figured out. What are you doing coming back, messing it up? But then on the other hand, there's no God worth worshiping in the world of the relativism that Benedict was talking about.
Do you see they asked Trump about who should be pope? Who should be pope? I just imagine. No, if he had read the Brothers Caramel stuff, he might say, "I like the Grand Inquisitor." Okay, in fact, we're trying to get him to head ICE. Okay, to come in with the immigrants. Okay, I love it.
He has a cabinet full of Grand Inquisitors and a bunch of Christian enablers.
There's this great chapter where he finds this guy. I think he was Palestinian. Okay, Jesus. and he talks to this guy from Palestine, and he's fantastic.
Yep, that's you're
Yeah,
right.
that's yeah. I mean, I think that's it's interesting. Both, I think there's so on the dictatorship of relativism thing. I
Yeah.
think there's this, yeah, there's this. Our Doug Wilson. He should be whose name shall not be named. Maybe he should be one
Yeah,
who
I'm
should
fine.
know.
I'm fine with us not talking about him.
Ever, not even named. Yeah, just not.
I'm fine that we don't have to ever talk about him again.
No, I mean, he said in college that he was in this class. I guess this is in the 70s at the University of Idaho, and this woman was saying basically,
They're not. I bet you their funding isn't in trouble.
no, 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 no,
University of
no,
Idaho. University of Idaho is in
no,
good shape right now.
no, yeah. That this woman in class said, well, the problem is, like, you Christians, you believe everything, you believe things, and you're so sure, and you're like you'll be like the Nazis. He said, and then Wilson said, Marshall said, well, I'm against Nazis, but to be against Nazis, it's a bold.
That was not the Nazi issue there.
Yeah, he said, that, but let's say that, we had a confrontation with the Nazis, but to go kill Nazis, you have to have convictions of what you believe to think they're wrong, right?
Right.
So on some level, right, there's this, but he made the point that there's this sense that you can believe whatever you want as long as you don't really believe it. And that's kind of the dictatorship.
That's great, right? Yeah.
As long as you don't really take it seriously, you can believe whatever you want.
By the way, I do read what you send me. I don't always respond immediately. I didn't, but what you read, what you wrote, and quoting Benedict reminded me of another one of your favorite thinkers, and this made it in my sermon last week from Lesslie Newbigin, who says this, and this is a very, I think it's an Eastertide kind of thing to think about. How can a strange story of God made flesh, of a crucified Savior, of resurrection and new creation become credible for those whose entire mental training has conditioned them to believe that the real world is the world which can be satisfactorily explained and managed without the hypothesis of God? I know of only one clue to the answer in that question, only one real hermeneutic of the gospel: a congregation who believes it.
Yes. Yeah.
Mission begins with a kind of explosion of joy. The romance of orthodoxy is just, yeah. I mean, that's, I mean, it seems so strange, but again, I love my church up here. I love what God's doing in our midst. And to be able to tell these folks that, all right, what you want to, what's the most important thing you can do about the world right now? Everything that's upsetting you is to believe what we say we believe the Christian faith.
Yeah.
And I think that's to me the power of what Benedict is getting at, and that certainly is not in contradiction to, understanding that we live under a mystery, and a good theologian. Your former professor or colleague, and one of my former, I guess he was overseeing my training program as a young life, Daryl Guter, just said a good theologian is a humble theologian.
Yeah.
And I think that, I think that's both those things are very important. And I hope, go ahead. I think it's amazing to me that given everything that goes on in this world, and given where the people are with the church and Christianity, and all the negativity of it, and much of it well deserved, that the Roman Catholic Church has had to, and the repercussions of the failure of the bureaucracy and leadership. People, the celebration of Francis's life and the interest in this Pope election, it doesn't feel like secularism is ruling the day, with the level of both admiration that Francis received, but plenty of condemnation, which is very comforting to me, because I think that means that he was doing something right, but also just the fact that people still are looking, people are still searching, people are this Christendom in many ways is alive and well in very different forms. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. It's interesting. I had this woman on Give and Take yesterday, I guess, Kelly, or 2 days ago, maybe Kelly Osgood, and quite an interesting person. She's an adult convert to Judaism, and she wrote an interesting book called Godstruck, and it was about 7 women's conversions. One converted to, including her own, and one converted to Mormonism, one to Islam, one to Quakerism, one to Catholicism. So it's interesting, but she talks about this, she's asked this a lot. Is it being asked this a lot in conversation with the book? Is faith making a comeback? And this USA Today did a story about Mockingbird, who I wrote this essay for. Same question. So I think you're right. I mean, it's hard to see, because first off, I think secularism. I just listened to this, which I recommended to you, this conversation between Ross Douthat and Ezra Klein. And one of the things that I think Douthat makes a good case for is just the problem with secularism. There are more things in this world that can be explained or contained in your philosophy Hill ratio. I mean, there's just a lot of mysterious things, right? And the sort of materialist view of the world, which is in world history an extreme minority view, a minority view of minority views. And it seems so prevalent because we have presentism, right? Always in our bones, we're thinking that the historical now is right. But even in this, even in a seemingly materialist age, there's belief in spirits. And I talked to a woman the other day, a very intelligent woman who I like and respect, and it's fun, and someone I know here in Philadelphia. So I'm at I was at a tarot card reading group in the suburb, and you media and your own stomping grounds. And I'm thinking, I mean, this stuff comes out, right? This desire, this yearning for the transcendent. And so I do think, you're right. Like, I don't think secularism is winning the day. But I mean, as Douthat would say, in his book Bad Religion, the problem is, in some sense, you're better off with the world's traditions, the world's religious traditions, because they do some sifting work for you, right? That they don't leave you on your own to interpret all the mysteries and irregularities and immaterial things on your own, right? That there's the repositories of wisdom, that, because Klein was bringing up psychedelics, and if psychedelics bring you closer to the spiritual realm, he said, look, in the Catholic view would be something like, look, there is an immaterial world, and psychedelics might well get you in contact with it without preparation to be in contact with it.
Yeah.
And that, I think the beauty of traditions that are rooted in a proper confidence, right? That realizes that you need faith, but a faith that's chastened by, the danger of an improper certainty, that carries with it some rules for the road, right? Some insights and practical wisdom about the mysterious immaterial reality that we're immersed in.
Right.
And so, and it's funny because Ezra Klein really confessed to having a mystical experience with something like Hasidim or something, right? I mean, it kind of freaked him out. And Ross was like, well, why don't you assume that this experience and maybe me talking to you might mean that God is trying to speak to you and wants to know you? And why don't you find a politically appropriate synagogue and go and start to explore what your ancestors have said is their connection to God? And I thought it was a very interesting invitation.
Yeah.
You don't have to be alone, right? That people that are, and you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to sign on the dotted line to every tradition or any tradition. But you also don't have to be a wayward traveler on your own.
Yeah.
And you can go to Vermont. For goodness sake, you could go to hang out with Bill in Vermont right now. And, and the soul's up there.
Yeah, no, I would. This is a number of different important events in Israel and in the Jewish community this week, and remembrance events. And we had last night at the synagogue, there was a Holocaust survivor. And her dad was a doctor. They right there in that border area between Poland and Ukraine. It goes back and forth, And I think she was turned 1 the year that Poland was invaded by the Nazis, and where they lived was kind of on the front between the Soviets and Poland. After basically Stalin and Hitler made a deal, so Hitler invaded one end of Poland, and and then
when you say that, I get the Trump voice, man. Like Stalin and Hitler, they can make a deal. Okay, Stalin.
By the way,
I hate when he said. I hate when everything is reduced to the word deal.
Right.
I guess because the idea, like he doesn't want to make a deal.
By the way, I sent you a meme this week where this guy says, "I realized that Donald Trump was the lead singer of REM," and but you have to look at that. But it was her. She was not in a camp. She was hid, but she was hid in a hut with a Polish peasant, and for 2 years, no one spoke to her. They didn't talk to her, and she said, and they told her, "But you can't." And she was in this corner, and at any rate, it's hard to I can't even do it justice by repeating, but there was a guy in the town who had been a photographer before the World War, and he had a shop, a mechanic shop, and he hid her parents and uncles under the floor of his shop. And his shop was, on one side of the shop was the Gestapo, the other shop was the Ukrainian militia, and he was surrounded. He hid them in this crawl space for 22 months or so, in the middle of all these, and they survived. Yeah, but there was this peasant woman was keeping her, and this woman's cousin, somebody's cousin of the guy who was protecting him, came and said, "You need to kill this girl because the neighboring town, there was a Polish family that were hiding Jews, and the whole family was executed, including the children." I think that's the family that was canonized. The family that there was a whole family, little children, including an unborn child, that were all killed for this.
Wow.
And this guy, he said, "We're not going to do that. We're going to protect this child."
Wow.
And he actually was ostracized after the war. When people found out he did that, he was ostracized. The Soviets then came in, took all of his. He did not have a triumphal life, but he is recognized at the Holocaust Museum in Israel as a righteous Gentile. His son is keeping the legacy alive. Now he's celebrated. But what was interesting, I always hate the people who ask questions to try to kind of, when it's about them. And again, particularly this woman who talks about her trauma, talks about the years in therapy she took, what it took for her. I mean, it's a haunting presentation she gives. And this woman, wearing sunglasses, starts talking about, well, she started psychobabble and things like that. And she goes, and why in the world would this guy, did he get paid for saving it? And she goes, no. And she had said something earlier about Christianity. Yes, there was all kinds of horrible things done, but she had said that Christians were part of who saved us, and the woman goes, why in the world would he do that? And she said, she looked at the Holocaust survivor, she said, because in the midst of everything that's awful, there are people who are decent, who believe in good.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I can't think of any more ambiguous and dangerous situation, relativistic and life and death. And most of the people around them did not help this family.
Yeah.
And most of the people turned their Jewish neighbors in, took all their stuff, treated, and he was a doctor who had helped people. But in the midst of all that, there was someone who believed in something bigger and risked it all, and actually did not, the only reward he got in this life was that there are 8 people who live because of him. And I think that's a pretty powerful thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So certainty. I'm certain that my only hope is in God.
Amen. And, we pray for the conclave.
Yeah.
And that somebody would walk in the steps of Jesus.
Yep. By the way, those of you who are listening, I would really encourage you. Scott will put his article in the show notes.
We'll put it up there.
and it's
I
good.
will not walk in the steps of Jesus because I am a fan,
It's good.
not a follower.
You have you have trouble walking. You have trouble staying consistent there. You just keep creeping over.
No,
You
no,
do.
no,
You
no.
feel sliding over because what
No,
you just amen what I said about Newbigin there. So
I
you can't
do.
help
I do.
yourself.
You
All
know,
right,
I've signed
read the
Sunday.
article
Thanks,
and
everybody, and
be well.
we'll come to you. We'll be streaming again soon. Thanks,
All
everybody.
right, peace.